Hello, my friends. Welcome into my 100% absolutely guaranteed to be accurate English Premier League season thoughts. Predictions, I guess is what you could call it. So I just want to kind of go through. I've not really done this before, and maybe it's something we start doing it as a community each year. Obviously, I'm doing this at the last minute. You're seeing this come out the day the season starts. So I want to hear your rankings, but you're going to have to leave them as comments in the video below. Maybe in the future we have some like giant community spreadsheet or something like that. But I just want to kind of go through. I'm by no means an expert. I haven't kept up with 100% of the transfer news. I don't understand 100% of the squads. It sounds like I'm really bigging this up, isn't it? Right? I'm doing a really good job. You should definitely listen to my thoughts. But I'm also hoping this is an opportunity for all of us to learn from each other. If there's something that like, wow, you've gotten that way wrong, politely leave that in the comments. Educate me about that particular squad. So I've taken some notes here. Let's get right to it. First up, I think it's pretty clear Man City are going to win the title. As of the time of recording, they have not purchased Harry Kane, but I am anticipating them continuing to back up what we would call here in the States the Brinks truck, like the armored truck. I don't know what brand it is over in the UK or elsewhere in Europe, but you know, an armored truck full of money to Tottenham in order to convince them to sell Harry Kane. At the last time I saw it, the last report was 150 million euros plus potentially add-ons, and I just think Tottenham's going to have to take that at some point, if for no other reason but because Kane wants to leave, and that's a ton of money. Obviously, Man City already really good, won the league last year. If they get Kane and they've already gotten Grealish and they get KDB, it's like there's so many ridiculous players. I think if they don't win the title, Pep should be sacked. It's just my opinion. So there's really not a whole lot to say on this one, and I don't know many people that would disagree. They have stupid talent levels. They spent bajillions of millions of euros. They're going to win the title. Now, the real question is, can they win the Champions League? We'll see. Second in my list, it's the Mighty Reds. I'm going Liverpool, and it's not just because I wear red tinted glasses as a Liverpool fan. There are some concerns that really the only transfer business that Liverpool has done to date in terms of ins is Konate, who's a center back, which is great, except now, theoretically, you have like 7 healthy center backs on the squad. If you go like to Ben Davies and the guy like Reece Williams, the guys that played last year. But I'm anticipating Matip, Virgil van Dijk, Gomez, and Konate. That's 4 players for 2 spots. So how I think through this is last year, Liverpool had players in the hospital the entire year, right? Like the whole devastation on the back line that led to, you know, Fabinho playing at center back. It was just a hot mess, and they still finished 3rd. That to me is an indicator of the quality of the squad. And Liverpool, in my opinion, are more about we will keep our good players and continue to raise their wages, and that's where you're seeing the transfer money go, rather than splashing out on new players. Again, they did with, I think it was like 40 something million for Konate. I just go, if they finished 3rd last season without a like pair of center backs for most of the season, I've got to think they can improve on that. But we'll have to see. Next up, in 3rd, I am going to go Chelsea, which surprises even me. My main reasoning is Tuchel now will have had a whole summer and preseason, right? So he kind of like jumped into the fray, halfway through the season last season. And, they still finished really well. But now he's had a whole off-season, preseason, and now they've added Lukaku to the mix. I almost think Chelsea has more of like, it's almost like they've got too many good players and they're going to have to find something to do with them, right? Does like Christian Pulisic need to go on loan to West Ham or Leicester or someplace that'll play him every game? As a United States men's national team fan, I would say yes, because he doesn't seem to be favored by Tuchel as a starter and he needs minutes. But you got Lukaku coming in. My real question for them is, with all of those options, and obviously we all know Chelsea likes to have a bajillion players out on loan, so he's also got those to pick from in terms of those players' loans wrapping up and completing and then sending them back out, the ones that he doesn't want. How do they do the squad rotation, and how does Lukaku start to settle in? Because he wasn't there for most of the preseason, right? Like, he just got there, I think, this week or a couple days ago at the time of recording. So how long does it take for the squad to get up to speed? Is Havertz going to be as good? Is Mount going to be as good? Is Werner going to finish some of those chances, or is he not even going to be on the pitch because Lukaku's there? I think it's interesting, but I think having that extra preseason time, I think they're going to improve and finish in third. Next up, Man United. That's where I put Man United. I kind of honestly, I think it's Man City, and then you could put Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United in whatever order that you want. That's kind of where I go with it. For me, with Man United, yes, they went out and plopped a ton of money on Sancho after, looking ridiculous, in my opinion, in the press with like, hey, we want to give you €6 for him. And they're like, no. How about 7? Like, no, right? Like, going back through that. But he's been there. They signed Varane. I think that went through today, or his medical, or he signed the contract. Now, he hasn't been there for preseason. And outside of that, that's really the only paid transfers that I've seen from them. Like, they've loaned, I think, a guy named Chong, who's a right winger from Birmingham, and Tuanzebe from Villa as a center back, like, I guess, rotation cover option from Villa. I just think it's going to take Sancho some time to settle. There was some discussion in our community Discord, which, by the way, you should join. The link is in the description. Great place hanging out. Had some really kind words said to me recently by some of the folks in the community about, like, it feels like a bunch of friends, which kind of warms your soul as a content creator, not gonna lie. But I just think it's gonna take Sancho some time to settle, and that came from somebody in the community. Like, how many players have left the Bundesliga and come in and just hit the ground running in the English Premier League? Not many. I also think with Man United, they had a couple. Like, they finished in third, fair. Like, I think it was 5 points clear of Chelsea, so 74 versus 69 points. But they had a couple of things happen in the second half of the season that you kind of go, if that had gone slightly differently, they could have finished up fourth, right? So, like, this is kind of where in my head I'm going, is it Chelsea? Is it Man United? Like, they're kind of, I don't know. But, like, examples. They drew with Fulham. They lost to Leicester. They drew with Leeds, Crystal Palace, West Brom, Arsenal, Everton. They lost to Sheffield. Now, to be fair, they did beat City. So I'm not trying to, like, dog Man United. But if a couple of those results go another way and they lose those points, right? Like, all of a sudden, you're dropping down to fourth in the table. So I think there's a potential for that. We'll just have to see how those. It really comes down to, how do those 2 new signings come in, and do they get any, like, horrible injuries? Like, do these other teams, like, that's kind of the thing. If you can avoid injuries, unlike Liverpool last year, that obviously greatly increases your chances of finishing at the top. In fifth, I don't think this is really going to surprise anybody, I've got Leicester. Here's my concern with Leicester. They just lost Fofana about a week ago to a broken leg. Now, to be fair, as of today, they've signed Vestergaard from Southampton. But again, he's got to integrate into this team and their system and all that kind of stuff. They have signed Daka and Salmer. Actually, Salmer from my Football Manager save. That's interesting. And Bertrand. So I think they've got some good additions. It's going to be interesting to see if Daka starts digging into Vardy's minutes, or if they play like a 4-4-2, or how they utilize both those guys. I just think Vardy, he's on my Fantasy Premier League, at least my Week 1 team. I just think it's one of those things where he gives you 25 to 30 goals and assists combined every year. That's great. No one's figured out how to stop him. That's great. He is going to start to age, but it's more about that support around him. Can they get it over the line? If they beat Man United twice, like, I could see that flipping, right? Like, I think it's pretty close. Next up, and this is going to please some people in my community, in 6th, I've put Aston Villa. Now, I know that sounds probably a little outlandish, considering last year Villa finished 11th on 55 points. But hear me out. They don't have just one player you can stop now, right? Like, if teams focused exclusively on Grealish, now to be fair, you got Watkins, and, I'm not saying but, like, really, like, Grealish is the man, or was the man at Villa. and teams could hone in on him. It's like, and if you can stop Grealish, you greatly increase your odds of drawing or winning the game against Villa. Well, now you can't do that. And I don't know, the chairman or CEO or whoever of Villa put out a fantastic, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 minute video on Twitter explaining the reasoning for accepting the offer for Grealish, why he was going, why they put a contract together like they did that he signed last year, etc. And it just seemed very like, we have had a plan. And honestly, there are some teams on this list that you go, I don't think they've had a plan in like several years. So the simple fact that Villa had a plan, they've gone out of the blue signed Danny Ings, who I think last season had 12 goals and 4 assists, something like that. He's a goal monster. And then on top of that, you get Buendia, you got Leon Bailey, even adding Ashley Young as that like veteran, I think he's like 35-year-old locker room presence. I think Villa's going to surprise some people this year, because now, again, you can't just go double team Grealish and we'll probably be okay today. You can't do that anymore. So how does that shake out? I don't know, but I just think they might surprise some people and move up pretty significantly. That's why I put them at 6th. Next up, 7th, I've put Leeds. Here's my reasoning. Bielsa is an incredible manager. They've had a proper rest, as much as a proper rest as everyone else has had, right? Like, I'm sure they had players going off to continental competitions and so on. But you think about what happened over the 1920 and the 2021 seasons, and like the complete lack of rest for players. I think that when you're in a system like Leeds, right? What do they play on Thursdays? It's like a murder ball. That's got to wear you down, right? So that you give Bielsa an actual summer. Again, fair. They probably had some guys out. I haven't looked at it, but some guys out on continental competition duty, right? But you give them an actual preseason and a break. They picked up essentially Junior Firpo from Barcelona, and they've made permanent the transfer from Man City of Jack Harrison. But Jack Harrison was there last season, so he's on my fantasy team as well. He was just there on loan. So it's not like they've added significantly. And I kind of get the feeling for the clubs that haven't done that. Liverpool being one, Leeds being one, and then we'll get to like Newcastle, West Ham, those types of teams. Not in that order. Fair play. That there is some potential benefit if you're happy with your squad and like you're just working on those on like the repetition, right? Like the same methods of passing the ball around, moving in that space, moving it, and the team is getting more familiar with it versus constantly bringing in new faces that are having to get up to speed. And you've got a manager like Bielsa. I think you could get some surprises, and I'm going to put them up on 7th. All right, my friends. So who does that leave in 8th? I'm going to put West Ham. That might seem harsh considering, where did West Ham finish last season? 6th. With 3 wins, a draw, and a loss in their last 5 on 65 points. Like, they were within 2 points, so 1 win difference. 1 loss to a win, or 2 draws to, well, I guess they'd be even on points, but not goal difference. But, like, within a shot of the top 4 into the Champions League. I kind of think missing Champions League is a good thing for West Ham. Hopefully that doesn't come across as harsh if you're a West Ham fan. But dropping them in the Europa League, a little bit easier maybe to rotate in, right? In the group stage in particular. And then anything after the group stage is just like, that's just like going to the candy store, right? Like, that's great. But I don't think West Ham has the ambition to win the Europa League. I don't know if that's accurate. But the fact that you finish so strong, and really they've only brought in Craig Dawson, who comes from promoted Watford, and I think he's really there as kind of, that rotational center back. They lost Balbuena, who played like 1,200 minutes last season. That's like, what, a third of a season, something like that, in terms of total minutes. And the only other out I could find was Felipe Anderson, who was on loan last year anyway. So it's kind of one of those things where you go like, they must be happy, or cheap, right? Or unable to spend. But even with that, you might be able to get some loans in, of like significant loans, and they haven't really done that. And so I kind of go like, I wonder if they're pretty, like, they're good where they're at, and again, it's that repetition, get some rest, and we go again. I do think if the start of the season goes a little rocky, then it could get a little shaky and that 8th place starts slipping a little bit further. But I don't think that's going to happen. I put him at 8th. 9th. Oh, God, the comments. I'm not an expert. And my community, if you're new around here, this is the first video you've seen of mine, is generally pretty polite. So let's keep it that way in the comments, even if you think I'm like an absolute idiot. Okay? 9th, I'm going to put Arsenal. Spurs fans not happy about that. Methinks. I'll explain. I think this season is make it or break it time for Mikel Arteta. Now he's getting support from at least from a spending standpoint, right, from the board. So he can't really complain, right? They go get Ben White. It was like 60 something million for a center back. They got Lakanga, Tavares. I think Kolasinac and Torreira have returned from loan and haven't gone back out that I could see. I put him at 9th as more of a concern about the Arsenal board. So let me pull this up because they finished 8th last season. So it's not like, whoa, 9th is crazy. But they had a 10-game stretch last year from October 17th to December 19th where they, in order, lost to Man City and Leicester. Then they beat Man United. They lost to Villa, drew with Leeds, lost to Wolves, lost to Spurs, lost to Burnley, drew with Southampton, and lost to Everton. Now, to be fair, the season really turned around from there, right? Like, so I'm not trying to dog Arsenal. They beat Chelsea. They went on a run. They finished really strong, I think. They won their last at least five games. I'm looking at the FPL site, and it's like, it only shows the last 5 games. They're all wins. But my concern is, will the board go, all right, we'll go invest this money. And then if they hit another one of those big stretches of miserableness, is what I'm going to call it, a big stretch of miserableness, will Arteta make it through that? I'm not convinced of that. But I'm not, all in the stuff with Arsenal. Maybe they love Arteta and they understand it's going to take a while to rebuild the squad. Some of the things I also look at is like, they're probably going to win some of those games or draw some of those games that they lost. Because, David Luiz is no longer going to get a straight red or give up a ridiculous penalty or something like that. And I hate to say that, like, he's a professional footballer, but man, there was like a lot of not great stuff going on there. And I think they've had some talks with maybe bringing Martin Odegaard on. He was on loan, bringing him back, on a permanent transfer, something like that. I haven't seen anything that's gone through yet. It's more of a thing with the Arsenal board. Will the Arsenal board go, yeah, we're good, even though we hit that stretch, we're good? Or is it or the wheel's gonna essentially start to come off because of the system that Arteta's trying to play? But that's where I put him at 9th. All right, my friends, Spurs fans, I put you in 10th, but hear me out. Like I said with Man City at the beginning, I think Harry Kane leaves and he goes to Man City, primarily because they're gonna offer 150 million, but also because he wants to go. So it's one of those things, like that is so much money. Like, I think Lukaku at 115 million euros just broke the transfer fee, like, of all time. And now Man City are going to do the same thing and go get Kane for much more than that. If you're Daniel Levy, I think you have to take that money. However, I think, like, what I originally thought with Harry Kane was that Levy had done a fantastic job because he let Man City go buy Grealish and was like, problem solved. No one else has that money. And then Man City's like, oh, we have another bank account. Not a problem. We have another sponsor. And we're going to still spend 150 million to go get Kane. And I just think you have to take it if you're Tottenham. My concern is it's so late. I mean, the window continues, but it's the start of the season today. I'm not convinced that Daniel Levy has a plan that if he is going to sell Harry Kane, that he's already got 3 players lined up to really bolster the squad. I could be wrong. Again, I don't watch, the blogs or anything like that for all of these teams. But, are they going to, they don't have a Grealish to go buy. You say like, hey, they gave us 150 million, but at least we got Grealish for 100 million, right? Like, who you going to go get this close to the start of the season and as the window continues with that money. Now, they did bring in Brian Gill for $27.5 million. I think they loaned a backup goalkeeper, and they loaned Romero at center back to replace, I always get the two guys mixed up, Alderweireld. But that's it. Like, so they've really only added like probably 2 players that are going to start and a backup goalkeeper. So if Kane walks out, do you have an option to bring in, or 2 options to bring in? Like, are they going to take that money and go drop $50 million on 2 different players, or $75 million on 2 different players? If so, who? I don't know. But I only put them here because I think Harry Kane is that important, and I think he leaves. If he doesn't, I think they might switch places with Arsenal, right? And kind of see how the Arsenal-Tottenham thing goes. But I think Kane leaves. All right, my friends, we're halfway through. If you enjoy content like this from me, make sure you, if you want to, you can support the channel a couple different ways. Obviously, there's all the ways you can give money to creators is what I call it. So starting the simple way, you can watch the ads and not click skip on those video ads. That helps this much. If you want to throw a buck a month my way, $1 a month essentially is like 1,000 people watching an ad, or at least 500 people watching an ad. So you can do that through patreon.com or through YouTube membership. Those links are in the description. Or if you want to buy some Gray Hair Gaming merch, t-shirts and mugs. I keep my pens in one of my mugs. There's a link to Teespring below. Also coming up as Football Manager 22 comes out, I have a link to Humble Bundle where I get like very small affiliate commission for if you buy the game through them. They actually just lowered the price on FM21 to $19.99. And it's like a 60% off because normally it's like $50. So you can buy it right now through that link, and that also cuts a very small commission my way to help out with the channel. Thanks for your support. All right. I kind of think the bottom half of the table is the most interesting, to be honest with you. Like, that's just my opinion. In 11th, I've put Everton. Now, here's my justification for that one, my friends. I'm going to pull this up over here. Now, they finished 10th last season, so again, it's not a drastic change. Really, the only drastic change I've given is Villa was 11th, and I put them at 6th. And then maybe Tottenham going down from 7th to 10th, and Leeds hopping up from 9th to 7th. So it's, again, that middle jumping around a little bit. So I've only dropped Everton a spot. I think Rafa Benitez is a good manager, but they've had no real paid transfer movement. I kind of look at this as a, hey, Rafa, let's figure out what we got here kind of year. We brought in some good players last year. But I think if you compare Rafa Benitez to Carlo Ancelotti, you'd have to argue Ancelotti is a better manager. Right? So, like, I would think Benitez wouldn't get the same result as Ancelotti. At least not to start, right? Because he's inheriting a squad rather than he's built the squad himself. I also think, and I won't go too much into this because I don't want to get demonetized, but the fact that Gylfi Sigurdsson is suspended for some pretty, let's call it aggressive accusations by the police in the UK, I think could really mess up the locker room for a bit at Everton. Like, I'm not saying those things are true or not. I don't know anything about it. But I could see, like, that kind of turmoil, generally not a thing you want to have in your locker room. So I think that might make it, especially at the start of the season, seeing how that plays out, could make it a little bumpy. That's just me. So, again, the fact that they haven't really had any, like, real paid transfer movement that I could see, I'm going to triple check that because I feel like I'm crazy when I verbalize it like that. I'm looking at the transfers. Let's look here. I mean, they bought a center back from Norwich for $30 million, which seems like a lot for a team that's getting promoted. Oh, no, that was last season. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, sorry about that. Scratch that. They brought in Damari Gray from Bayer Leverkusen for $2.2 million, left winger. And I think Townsend from Crystal Palace on a free. So, like, literally it says on Transfermarkt that they've spent $2.2 million. I think that's in dollars. So it's kind of like, that's why I get the feeling like, hey, we've already kind of invested a little bit in the last season. we want you to kind of come in and figure out what we got, and then we'll kind of take it from there. And then you have this whole Gylfi Sigurdsson thing. Hopefully that gets sorted in a positive ending. Ugh. Next up, this one might be a little bit of a surprise, and it's an upgrade compared to last season. I'm going to say Brighton in 12th, which I think most people are going to think is wrong. Brighton last season finished 16th on 41 points. So they were 13 points clear of relegation and 2 points clear of Burnley, who were the next team below. The thing that stood out to me about Brighton is they had a -6 goal difference. So again, I'm just looking at their results, right? Southampton finished 2 points above them, but had -21 goal difference. That's 15 goals difference, right? And now Southampton did have a 9-0 smashing, so I guess maybe, that factors into it. But Crystal Palace, -25, and they were 3 points above Brighton. So I just wonder if Brighton, if they get some results to go their way and they score a couple more goals, I could see how they could climb up. Of course, yes, they lost Ben White to Arsenal, but if they can plug that one hole, like he's just one player, and they got a good return on him, and obviously they went and got, I think it's Mwepu from Salzburg for the midfield. So it's not like they haven't gone out and splashed 60 million on, a striker or something like that. But, 25 million on a central midfielder. I think it's, they got a goalkeeper for 5.5 from Ajax. A left winger from Japan's from the J1 league. A center back Matt Clark on loan from West Brom. Is anything really significant gonna happen there? I don't know. But that's where I kind of go, like, again, if you went by goal difference, which I know isn't the only thing, but like that is a significant difference over the two teams at least above them, which would put them at 14th rather than 16th. And then we'll talk about the other teams and why I think they might kind of drop back a little bit. But I just go, they might surprise some people. At 13th, my friends, I have put Newcastle United. I have seen lots of people on Twitter talk about, no transfers for like years, right? Because of the ownership. And I thought that was just like, no, like real transfers. It's like no transfers at all. They have loaned out, or they've loaned. Let's see. Nope. Jake Turner is on loan at Colchester United. Let's League 2. Okay. They don't have, all of their arrivals have been loaned out, is what it looks like. They have 3 arrivals: Jake Turner, Florian Lejeune, and Yoshinoro Muto, who are all on loan. So they have 0 transfers. That is insane. Now, last year, Newcastle finished 12th on 45 points with a -16 goal difference, won 3 of their last 5. So I have them in the ballpark. I just think, I'm just going off of, I think if Brighton hasn't really changed a lot and Newcastle hasn't changed a lot, I think Brighton just needs a couple of those games that they lost by a small goal difference to go their way, and they're going to hop up to 12th, which will push Newcastle down. Well, it's more of that versus Newcastle falling. Now, if Newcastle gets like some crazy injuries, right? Callum Wilson goes down for a significant period of time, I think things are looking a little crazy for them. But and was it also, let's check here. Yeah, so it looks like there's a transfer in progress, maybe, or being negotiated for Newcastle to buy Joe Willock from Arsenal. But again, he was there on loan, played 14 games, got 8 goals last season. So it's not like they're a different team. In fact, without him, whether it's a loan or a transfer, they would be a different team, right? So it's not a, I don't want to say a real transfer. It's not an actual addition if he transfers to the club. So that's like, nothing has really changed in Newcastle, assuming he is back. Next up, 14th, I'm going to put Wolverhampton. So Bruno Lage, formerly with Benfica, has about 3-ish years of managerial team at like first team level. He averaged 2.21 points per game last season with Benfica. They've got a new goalkeeper, so Patricio's gone. Obviously, some sort of either a new system or he's going to keep the kind of like 3-5-2 type situation they had going on. I think they're probably fine, is kind of the feeling. But, you know, like some of the transfers were guys that were there last year on loan that have then transferred in, like Nuri at left back, Jose Sa from Olympiacos, I'm guessing is the goalkeeper to replace Patricio. I'm not familiar with him, to be completely honest with you. I'm pulling it up over here. You know, they picked up a center back and a right back for, you know, 6 million and 2 million ish. It's just not like big splashy spending. I'm not expecting that. Yeah, it looks like Jose Sa is going to be, he's wearing the number 1. So I believe he would be, you know, the starting goalkeeper. So again, it's not that I think Wolves are bad. I just don't think, like, it's not like they've had some monster signing that you're going to go, wow. And especially the new manager, you kind of go like, is it going to get a little shaky to start and then finish okay? I don't think they're really at risk of relegation. But, you know, they finished on 45 points. And Fulham was on 28 in the relegation zone. So typically, what is it? 40 points kind of is safety. So you got to have 5-point cushion. But, like, 5 points isn't a whole lot, right? So I do think they'll be okay. So, my friends, that takes us to 15th. And this is where I think it kind of gets a little interesting. I put Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace last year finished 14th on 44 points. We're getting closer to that 40-point safety mark, right? And they've got a new manager, Patrick Vieira. My opinion, I've not really been all that impressed with Patrick Vieira as a manager. Now, you could argue he's done NYCFC, which is Major League Soccer, so your points per game as a manager is going to be all over the place because of how MLS works. Okay. Then you go to Nice, right? And you go, it's not much better. It's actually it's worse at Nice than it was at NYCFC from a points per game. Like his only full season was a 146. You know, last season it was a 155 in 11 matches. He's never had 2 points per game. Like as a manager, he doesn't have that much senior team management experience. And you throw him into a situation where you had an aging squad. They've lost some real experience. Like, here are some of the players that have left. Andros Townsend, Van Aanholt, Sacco, Hennessy at goalkeeper, McCarthy, Gary Cahill, Scott Dan, like some old, experienced veteran players have gone out. I'm not saying those are necessarily bad, but that's a lot of experience to have walk out the door when you're Crystal Palace. Now, they have reinvested, and they're getting younger. Like, the average age of their arrivals, according to Transfermarkt, is 22.8. But again, some of that's got some loan stuff in there, so I'm not sure how much of that is accurate. But, they picked up 2 center backs, Mark Gui and Joachim Anderson from, respectively, Chelsea and Lyon, with Chelsea's multitude of under-23 players, right? They picked up Michael Olise from Reading, who I think I may have signed when I was with Burnley on Football Manager 21 in the beta. So, they spent like 55-ish million, on 3 different players, 21, 25, and 19 years old for those 3 players. Now, again, the average age is talking about all the free transfers and the loan transfers and all that kind of stuff. But it's not like, in my opinion, a plethora of talent. And you have a guy who, in my opinion, hasn't been super successful as a manager. That, to me, is a little shaky. And they had a negative 25 goal difference last year. Which, again, I know it's just one indicator. But when you're only safe by a certain amount of margin, that's where I go. If Brighton wins some of the games that they should have won just based off goal difference, and Crystal Palace lose some of the games that they probably should have lost because of their goal difference on average, makes me nervous. In 16th place, I think it's pretty easy. It's going to be Burnley. And I love Burnley. I mean, I just love like their signings this season. I'm going to read all of the signings, and some of them may have been folks that were on loan and came back, that they've then loaned back out. Nathan Collins, an Irish center back from Stoke City in the Championship for $15.4 million, their only paid transfer. Jacob Bedeau from Scunthorpe United, he's a free transfer center back, 21 years old. Wayne Hennessy, as we noted with Crystal Palace, goalkeeper, free transfer. And then I want to say Bailey Peacock Farrell was one of their players that they loaned out. I think he's loaned out again to Sheffield Wednesday. Lucas Jensen is a goalkeeper that has been loaned out a couple different times. They've lost Jimmy Dunn, an Irish center back. So they've replaced one Irish center back with another, and Robbie Brady, the Irish left midfielder. So, like, essentially, you have maybe one actual signing. I don't know if Hennessy's going to start in goal or be just one of the options at goalkeeper, but you've signed a center back. No, okay, they got Nick Pope, so Hennessy's the backup probably. You signed a center back. So Burnley, and I'm not saying it's pretty. They finished 17th, which is one spot above the relegation zone, but they were clear by 11 points. They do what they need to do. I'd be shocked if they go down this season just because of the other teams. It's not exciting, but it is what it is. In 17th, I am going to put Brentford. I think they've had some solid signings. They signed Christopher Ayer from Celtic for $17 million. Again, I think on Transfer Market it's doing US dollars, so whatever that means in your currency, 34 million euros, I'm sure, like whatever, or pounds. But he's a darn good center back. It's interesting, as I've played more in Europe on Football Manager, I'm more familiar with some of these players. Like as I've played in different countries, that's why I love Football Manager. I am aware of Christopher Ayer. That's awesome. So I think that's a solid signing. Onyeka from Midtjylland and Wissa, who's in my FC Lorient save right now. And they've got a long-term manager that's been there 3 years. So now you might argue that might be a negative because they had a way that they played in the championship and it worked. Can they adapt? But he's not a brand new manager. He's seen success. And I think having that plan and really the trust of the squad is also important. So they've not really lost anybody that they didn't want to lose, right? Like they've lost 4 players on freeze or on a loan, 3 on free transfers and 1 on a loan. They brought in 4 or 5 players, maybe 4 or 5 players, a center back, again, Ayer, midfield, and Onyeka, Wissa on left wing, and then Miles Pert Harris, who's 18, youth prospect, most likely from Chelsea, for $1.65 million. Again, it could be a toss-up, and I think if they get one injury, like if Tony, their striker, goes down, I think they're obviously in real big trouble. But I like that they bolstered with Ayer at center back and the midfield, and then an attacking options on the wing. Like, it's not all concentrated in one area. Hey, they could get some results that go their way, and it works out. Really, I have them there because of the team I have in 18th. So let's go talk about that. In 18th, I think Southampton get relegated. Here's my reasoning. They were on 43 points last season, negative 21 goal difference. Now, again, they had that 9-0 game, so what is that? Negative 14? No, 21. Negative 12? Still not great. Still not great. And they've lost Ings and Vestergaard, who just left today. So this is a combo. They've lost a very good center back and their best striker, who gave them 12 goals. Now they have signed Adam Armstrong from Blackburn for almost 20 million. They signed a left back, Romain Perraud, from Stade Brest 29 in Ligue 1 for a little bit more than 13. Livramento at right midfield. And then it looks like, but he's 18. Samu is 19 as center back. Theo Walcott on a free. There's just not a lot of excitement there. And Armstrong is good. Like, he scored 28 goals last season in the championship. However, because I was like, I've not heard of this guy. Let's go take a look. He scored 15 of his 28 goals in league play last season against 16th through 24th in the championship. That's essentially the bottom third plus one by my math, right? And he scored in buckets against those teams, like hat tricks, which is great. But like when you're playing the team that finishes 21st or 20th or whatever it is, and you get a hat trick, that's less impressive because they're on their way down to League One than if you were doing it against the teams at the top that got promoted with you, right? So of his 28 goals, only 13 came against the top 15 in the championship. And I kind of don't think that's going to be good enough to replace Ings' 12 goals and 4 assists. Not to mention Vestergaard leaving. And I honestly think it's going to be one of those things where they hit a rough spot and the board might panic. Now, that might not be fair. Like, Hasenhutl's been there since December 2018 and has a contract through 2024. But if it's not, like, do they get to the point where you're like, we got to make a change and bring in somebody like Big Sam, right? That'll just, like, help us solidify and just survive another season? Will it be too late by the time that happens? Now, again, maybe they love Hasenhüttl, and I'm not aware of the relationships there. I just think losing Ings and Vestergaard is really, really tough. Really tough. And I just don't think it's going to look too hot for him. Of course, you've probably done the math on the remaining teams. That leaves Watford and Norwich City, and that's the order I have put them in there. Watford, my reasoning is they've not really spent a lot of money on their, coming back up. Like they've got, I think it was Luza from central midfield from Nantes for 11 million, and Emmanuel Dennis, center forward from Club Bruges, for 4.4 million, and Matty Pollock, a 19-year-old from Grimsby Town, for 330,000. Now they picked up Danny Rose on a free from Spurs, Josh King on a free from Everton. Like there's some players there. I'm just not convinced it's enough. And I don't know the manager very well. It looks like Cisco. I'm sorry if that's not correct. It wouldn't surprise me. I have Decore. Or no, is it Decore? Who did I put in my fantasy team? Sorry, Deeney. I have Troy Deeney in my team because I think he's going to like barge his way into the box a couple times and earn penalties and whatever. So it would not surprise me if Sarr stays and Deeney has, a resurgence, that they get past a Brentford, right? And Brentford ends up in the relegation zone. It wouldn't surprise me if Crystal Palace's season goes really, really poorly and Watford does just enough to survive and Crystal Palace goes down, right? Like, just because I'm not convinced that Patrick Vieira is going to be the best manager. But I don't know. There's not a whole lot where I'm like, ooh, yeah, like that looks promising, Same thing with Norwich City. They sold Buendia. Now they have reinvested, to their credit, but in my opinion, none of these guys are world beaters. So they've gone shopping at the Werder Bremen store. They got 2 players from relegated Werder Bremen, which is not a good sign. And one of them is Josh Sargent, who's the U.S. men's national team fringe player. I'm not saying he's terrible, but like he's not keeping you away from relegation good, in my opinion. So you got Milo Rashica from Werder Bremen, right winger. Christos Zolas from PAOK Salonika in the Greece Super League, for both of those for about the same amount, a little bit more than 12 million. Sargent from Werder Bremen for a little bit more, about 10.5 essentially. Ben Gibson, center back from Burnley, for a little bit more than 10. A left back from, they got the left winger and the left back from PAOK Salonika. So that's interesting. There might be that like relationship already where those guys know how to play with play on the same side. For a little bit more than 8 million. Pierre-Lise Melou from Nice in central midfield for almost 7 million. Angus Gunn from Southampton, goalkeeper, for about 6.5. Billy Gilmore on loan from Chelsea. So like they've added like a multitude of players, but again, it's not like they're dropping 60 million on somebody. And I watched something. Redmond TV did an interview with I'm sorry, I can't remember the content creator who does essentially the same thing for Norwich City, and was talking about how, like, you know, the last time Norwich City came up, it was like, we don't care about defense, we're going to score goals, and obviously that didn't work. So he's thinking they're going to be a little more, not cautious, but like, you know, trying to be a little bit more defensively sound. I'm just looking at who they brought in and going like, I just don't think there's enough there to make it to where they get past some of these other clubs that are on our list, right? Like, again, if I'm thinking Southampton, Watford, and Norwich City are the bottom three, and Brentford, Burnley, and Crystal Palace are the next three, I don't see enough quality in Norwich City to beat out a Burnley. You know, maybe they take out Brentford, but again, well, is that for the third relegation spot or the first safe spot? You know, those types of things. So I don't know. I could be wrong. Again, they spent some money, right? They spent like a little bit more than 66 million. Now, again, part of that is they sold Buendia for like 42 million, and he was a big part of their season last season, right? So they've lost that, and I just don't think you've replaced it with enough quality, in my opinion. So that's where we're going to wrap it up, my friends. I'd love to hear your thoughts and how crazy you think I must be. If you want to put in, you know, 1 through 20 in the comments, and what your, you know, what you think is going to be the ranking at the end of the season, we'll take a look at it at the end of the full season and see how absolutely correct I was, obviously. But I appreciate you watching this far. If you enjoy this type of content, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and hit that bell. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.